Rise and join in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair might I'd like to welcome you all to the July meeting of the Exeter Township School District Board of Directors. We met prior to this meeting in the executive session to discuss student affairs, potential litigation, and personnel in actual litigation. Since we had a workshop meeting prior, as we normally do, you may hear a little more detail involved, but I ask you all to bear with us and we'll make it through the evening. Is there anyone who would like to address the board this time? Seeing no one rushing to the forward, we'll move on then. We have two sets of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Motion and second.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of minutes as presented, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Treasurer's report.
I move the treasurer's report as written.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the treasurer's report as printed? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the report, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Business functions, Mr. Staub.
Whereas the Board of Directors of Exeter Township School District has sought competitive bids by due public notice requesting same for the site work at the Watton Creek Elementary School, the project. And whereas the Board has received such competitive bids for the project. And whereas the Board desires to proceed expeditiously with the award of a contract and commencement of site work activities with respect to the project. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board as follows. Move that the architect EI Associates, the civil engineer Stackhouse, Bensinger Inc., the solicitor John S. Mosley Esquire, PC, and the administration have been authorized to tally and review the bids received for the project and to make recommendations to the Board, and move that pursuant to Section 751 of the Public School Code, and after tally, review, and recommendation, and after due consideration of all bids for the project, the Board hereby approves the award of the site work contract for the project for the Exeter Township School District to the following contractor in the amount stated herein and subject to conditions stated herein. Listed under number 1, a site work contract to Empire Services, and the base bid amount of $1,518,532.31, subject to the following alterations listed under A and B, and C, the total site work contract amount to be $1,518,532.31. Move that the Board hereby waives any incomplete, inconsistent, or irregular aspects of the bid that was submitted by Empire Services for the project, and move that the award of the contract set forth above is expressly made contingent upon receipt of an executed construction contract, payment bond, performance bond, and certificate of insurance in compliance with the contract document as approved by the solicitor, and move that the Board further authorizes its officers, administration, solicitor, architect, and civil engineer to take any and all necessary actions in order to effectuate the intent and purposes of this resolution. That's in attachment 5A.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
I'd like to ask if we could have the engineering firm describe the scope of work that we have the Empire Services performing for us in order we understand the scale of what was not performed by the original contractor.
Arista Exeter with Stackhouse Bensinger. Basically, this rebid, as we were originally calling it, is to effectively complete the original Watton Creek Elementary site work that was left incomplete or completed incorrectly. Things such as parking lots, lawn and grass, fire lanes, detention basins that need to be converted once the site is fully developed and complete. There were a lot of items that were left undone or completed incorrectly with the first contractor. This is an effort to find someone to complete that work correctly for the school district.
And there are additionally some permits that have to be satisfied that the project needs to complete.
Correct. There are some items that were identified within this contract and the original contract to meet outside agency requirements and approvals, that being Township, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, the Berks County Conservation District. So that this work as bid within the contract would address all of those requirements from outside agencies and approvals.
At the amount the bid came in, do you feel that this is within an acceptable range of what you forecasted it to be, plus or minus 10, 20%?
I think, yes, I think it's probably a little higher, but I kind of would have expected that based on the nature of this project. When you ask someone to come in and fix someone else's work and they have to take on the liability of the previous contractors, I don't want to use the word, but I'll say it because I can't think of another one, neglect. I think they take on a lot of liability with performing some of this work. They start digging down and find something that wasn't observed. They have to deal with that. So I would expect a little bit higher. Additionally, there are some items that definitely need to be done. For one, the staff parking lot is supposed to be pervious pavement. That's completely deteriorated and rejected. And through our firm's as-built of what was constructed out there, we found some additional inconsistencies with what was built and what was actually designed in the project that needed to be redone. So I know you guys have gotten some original numbers maybe a year or so ago, and this kind of coming in seems a little high, but again, it's a contractor probably protecting themselves against some unknowns, but it's pretty tight.
Is this something that you could see the cost continuing to go up if we wait?
Well, if you wait, you would what, rebid?
I'm just asking if this would be delayed. I know there's a growing season and potential deterioration of the areas you've met with this.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm asking.
That's true. There are some things that could continue to deteriorate. There are permits that would need to be renewed. Those aren't all free. Probably.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the one thing that was mentioned was the general nature of the athletic fields at the site. They have never been accepted. There are very few blades of grass and more weeds and rocks than I would want my kids playing on. So that's one thing that would be corrected here. You have fields that are usable and safe for your kids, and that's one of the prime aspects of this rework.
Are you familiar at all with Empire?
I am not.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? discussion?
No, I think we should move forward with this. I think the project needs to be completed, and I think we need to do it with as much expedited as quickly as possible.
I think it's a difficult decision, but really ultimately it comes down to, are we confident that the suit we have against the bonding company, are we going to be reimbursed? The work has to be done regardless.
Yeah.
Whatever the cost is, eventually we need to do the work. We need to fix the situation. We need to get our permits, and we need to meet all the obligations that we have. It's just, again, too, is waiting going to make it worse? That's one thing we have to do. And then really, ultimately, again, it's going to come down to litigation we have pending, trying to get our money back to the bonding company from the original company not meeting their obligations and doing the work. Does that sum it up?
Well, that's the other aspect of it, right? The recovery against the bonding company for the failure of the original contract to perform the work on the one hand, and then the necessity of having a usable project on the other hand, and we have to balance the two off. Certainly, this is work that has to be done at some point in time, and I think that the indication here is that it's not going to become any cheaper or better to do by waiting longer, and it's going to deprive the usage of the property to the students and the citizens.
Are we ready for the question? All in favor of letting the contract as presented, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Stone.
The long one, but
Always glad to hear from you. We have the first reading of the revised policy on non-resident students. If you remember, I guess it was last month, in June, I brought up the dual effort by the township, and this was our contribution to that effort. We complain about taxes, but in reflecting on what we have done to change it, we have exercised economy, and then we lay back and we do what has always been there to do. So this is an effort to take some positive action to better our tax position. Now, the township, on their part, they're reviewing all the zoning. They are reviewing their procedures to make it more friendly, business friendly, as far as attracting in taxable entities. And this was my thought on what we as a school district could do. I think we used one example where the party pays $17,000 in property taxes on his business every year. He has 2 children who have 2.5 years to go. And by giving him a discount, I'm not saying that anyone would move their business here strictly because of a discount from us, but it's one little piece of lanyard, as they used to say in New Orleans. It's that little something extra that might make them think about it. So this is the first reading. We would be voting on it at the next meeting, and naturally we can have comments, so if you'll review it, I'd appreciate it. And that is the intent of it.
I just would like to see maybe, it says a 50% reduction. Now, you might have a business and then move not move into the school district. And say you have your children and they're only young children, so we might be then subsidizing them from like K through 12. I would like to see some kind of time limit. I could see, maybe for the first 2 years, but if you really like the district, maybe then you would decide to buy a home in the school district also. I don't like to have an open-ended, 50%, going forward.
Talk to Mr. Maloney and administration about that, see what they feel about it.
I mean, I don't know how the rest of the members of the board feel, but that's how I feel about it. Because, then property owners might say, well, gee, maybe you should give me if I buy a house in the district, why don't you give me public schools need to be financed. That, we're having a problem federally and statewide. We don't need to go at the local level, at least not ad infinitum, I think. I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
If, I have a question for you, Bob, or for Mr. Wolseley. With regards to this is for a business owner who owns a physical building and facility that is paying real estate taxes to us, if I'm mistaken on that. So they've already picked up the burden of paying real estate taxes, which we all do as owners and residents in the township. So what we're doing is we're extending to them the option of providing for the education within proximity of their employment and their business. So some individuals do live 20, 40 miles from their company. I know a person I work with that lives in Plymouth Meeting, and his wife owns a dental practice in Fleetwood. So it's the fact that we're providing that opportunity that they can have a closer location. At the same time, we're not doing that and saying, well, you've already paid your taxes. We're assessing them a upcharge for the fact that they're going to be able to use our facilities for that education. I, in fact, think this is a great idea. In fact, it allows us to provide something as the township's looking at is how can we possibly attract businesses into Exeter Township? How can we possibly provide something you may not be seeing at another location? I think that's a very positive thing. But the only question I had was whether that the billing policy could be changed to a semester basis and a monthly basis. I always look at things as you should look at it as half a year, not as something month to month or something like that, which is found in the last paragraph of the first page. Tuition rate shall be charged. If we change that to semester based, I think that might be a better situation if possible.
The issue then is if you want to change that as to all various types of eligibility of non-resident students. And what you could do, at least we've tried to leave it open-ended so that we will establish a procedure, and that procedure will be unique to this qualification, right? And work through that and come up with procedures. I mean, there's certain things we have to define. We have to define what is ownership, and maybe 51% is ownership. But there are a lot of parts of the procedure that we don't want to necessarily put within the policy, and keeping that as short and sweet as possible with just a couple sentences. But define those items in the procedure. What constitutes ownership and what constitutes business property. It has to be, what happens if you have an apartment and you have a business downstairs. I think those are things that we have to work through, things that we have to turn over to our business manager to establish a good procedure on.
You were just talking about the billing though, Jim. You were just saying instead of monthly, do it.
Yes, I was looking just pure billing of saying if
We're
they're paying
saying we're
tuition.
gonna charge them monthly, like a monthly bill.
It's on the first page, John, actually.
I'm just looking to see what other types of tuition issues, but I don't know how it will interact with the rest of the policy. That's the only thing I'm not certain about.
I think the monthly was based, mom and dad move out of Exeter into somewhere else. They want the daughter to finish out that school year. There's only 3 months left. We're going to charge a whole semester to allow the child to.
They're different policies. I see it as independent policies where you're dealing with someone who is an existing resident or someone who anticipates moving into the school district, so they want to get their child started. They may not be living here until October. They want their child to start at the beginning of school year for that 1 month. We decide how that tuition is going to work. Versus this is more of a
include
outside
that.
individual.
So you would want to have as part of the specific provision on page 2 language that would
Obligate.
have provide for monthly billing. Tell me what you're looking for there.
He was looking for his charge for a semester. They started the school district in August. We charged for the first semester, and then the next bill is due at the second semester on a monthly basis. Correct?
Yes, correct. So maybe a payment is due in August, another payment is due in January.
So it's not monthly, you want to move it.
Correct.
You
So
want to
it's
move
more
the
of a
semi-annual on this
commitment.
semester.
And in reality, if we're looking at a 50% charge, we're looking at a total of, what's our average student costs per year?
The tuition, the estimate we're using for next year is 10,200.
So
5,100.
roughly, they're talking 5,600 for the year, so we're talking 2,650, 2,500. So I mean, we're not looking at significant dollars, relatively speaking, in a tuition sense. I mean, it would be comparable to going to a private school, but actually a lot less than that.
So you're just suggesting, just in this situation, to make it?
Yes, and I
But the
think
way,
that.
what we currently do.
I think it'd be a lot less
I think
aggravation as well as for
bookkeeping.
you billing something like this on a monthly basis. If they're gonna do it, typically you look at it, you're looking at first half of the year and the second half of the year.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have something where you are going to give a benefit like that, then I think you could certainly do it in 2 billing installments.
Because if they were going to have their child going to a private school, they'd be paying on a semester basis. They wouldn't pay that monthly, typically. I would think. Unless they had arrangements with the school, but it's, at least when it comes to my
No
tuition.
problem, it's the way it is.
But these students, like the person with the, that has a business here, well, then who would be liable to transport the child to back and forth? to
Parent.
school?
The parent is printed into this piece of
I'm
paper.
sorry, what?
The parent, as it's indicated in this document.
That's part of the policy,
Oh, I was just looking. at-
generally.
Okay, all right, I was just looking at the.
It's nothing-
the reg.
Right, we didn't try to add anything more than we
Oh.
had, we just kept that
Alright.
bare bones, and all the places, like on page 1, it says student transportation is the responsibility of the
Well,
parents.
I understood that, but I was just thinking of this, with, this new part of the puzzle.
Right,
So then you're saying the parent would have to transport the child back and forth.
yeah.
I still think we should not have it open-ended for 12 years or, I mean, I just think that's, you know, because businesses that don't have, that have children going to other districts, you know, they pay the business tax. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't support,
I think-
I know it's a good thing, but, you know, we need to have resources at the local level.
I would flip this around and say it's actually helping us. Because now we've taken an individual who's paid property tax, and property tax is not like yours and my home. It's not going to be $3,000 or $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 a year. I mean, most of these individuals, if they have a very good-sized business, are paying $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year for that site, if not more. Am I incorrect, Joe, in the assumption of this?
There's a lot,
So,
based on the value.
if you take
It
that-
can be very high.
and you take that and you transition that and you say, if we have space in the classroom, is the only reason a student can get in. And in fact, we have that space available, and we're able to attain income for our school district by filling another slot there for a place that would not be occupied, and we bring another $5,000 worth of income to our school district, we just bought 3 computers. We just bought 5 computers. You know, you have to look at how does this positively impact us, besides just how it's going to impact an individual who's going to locate their business here, and possibly speak favorably, and then may even become a resident in Exeter Township because they like it so much.
Well, I would hope that they would become a resident, and that's why I said I think we should have a limit. That's my opinion.
Well, I was going to say what Jim alluded to, this is a revenue stream possibly for us and could add resources rather than draining resources.
Well, look, as we have the business for hopefully 20, 30 years.
Yeah. And I guess I'm not as concerned with the time limit as Pat is, because as long as the business is here and stability in the community and they're paying taxes, I don't have a problem with this policy.
I don't agree with this policy for two reasons. First of all, I don't think we should carve out a special group of people. That's not what our public school system is all about. But the second thing that troubles me about this is the child. Here's a child who's going to be not part of their school community simply because they arrive for class and they disappear after class. And unless their parents are willing to let them come for extracurricular activities and other things in particular, they're not going to be a part. It's kind of like schools where there's a university in the community and you have townies and then you have the school community. And they really don't interact simply because they live different lifestyles. But most of all, I'm sure that there are kids that can deal with this. I'm just pointing out that I find that that's not a very positive thing for a school experience. And seeing as how we tend to emphasize participating in extracurricular events and all other things in school, you're then expecting a lot from the parents to make sure that their students will have this particular experience. But most of all, I think it's wrong to select a small group of people for an exception, because suddenly we'll find a lot of reasons for exceptions, and I'm not sure that we want to do that. Thank you.
Other comments?
I'd like to ask, generally we assume that the student will be in the regular education program, but if the student's in special education or alternative ed, does the 50% tuition mean they're going to pay 50% of what special education costs? Or
I think that's an issue that we need to address, but I don't know
that would be in the
that's
procedure.
discussed. Yeah.
We'll make modifications, bring it forward next month.
Well, because, I mean, you think about it, David, let's just say it's one of the situations where it's a child, Dr. Miller's, if it's could be $100,000 a year, they are probably not going to choose to pay 50. So you could actually write that word, you could word that where there would be a disincentive too. Now, we may
Yes.
have a better program, but I think we'd also have to protect, if we would go that route, have to protect the district, because there would be the potential of significant cost for us.
Well, that's what I mean. We
Yeah.
don't want to take in 5,000 and pay out 18,000.
Correct. No, sure.
John,
Well, I think as a public school, you can, if you're gonna have this policy, you would have to accept all children told. You could not discriminate, so you couldn't do that.
No, because
I feel that
they're
way.
filing an application to come to our school, so we have the ability to choose or not to choose. And if they become a disciplinary issue,
Well, I think
we
they
have
could
the
litigate.
option of asking them to leave
I
too.
think they could litigate that, and I
No,
think
because it's in the
court-
policy.
Well, I don't know, but I.
It's
I
written
find
here
it's
that
in the
if
policy.
there is a disciplinary issue, the individual could be asked to either modify the behavior, or the principal could suggest that they leave our school district. There should actually be written a policy that if they're asked to leave due to disciplinary issues, no refund will be made.
Well, you're acting like you're a private school then.
Yes, we are a private
this-
school if
in
they're
this
going to
case,
be
we are.
acquiring services from us. That's what happens when you have someone from outside of our district. We then become a private school, just like, we don't like to say it, but cyber charter schools are private schools, every other charter school is a private school. But we are now that provider.
Well, I disagree with the policy, and I will not be voting for it.
Well, it's a different viewpoint.
Move that to next month. Recommended personnel.
I move the Board of School Directors accept the following retirement listed under Part A, Number 1, for certificated staff, Jessica Saplinski.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Board of School Directors accept the following resignation of Ryan J. Myers.
second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Will this create a void in our staff for this upcoming year? Will we be able to find someone for one of us?
I believe we posted for that already.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Board of School Directors approve or ratify the following appointments listed under Part B. Number 1, certificated staff, and number 2, support staff, and number 3, our extracurricular ball coaching staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Mr. Baker, I have a question concerning C, certificate staff. It says amended from June 17th. Why is it that, if this is a long-term sub position, why is it not an open step as compared to, salary 43,000?
Catherine, we talked about this, I think, at the last meeting, that she, because she's been with us on a continuous basis, she does move to the next.
It was a long-term for this last year, so she would be put into that next step coming back.
Oh, she was a long-term sub last year. Oh, I was just wondering, I didn't know the situation. Okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion? All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Winther, I'd just like to point out Elizabeth Caruso is here.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I move the Board of School Directors approve or ratify the following requests for leave of absence. The certificated staff, 1A, Lynn Camillo, and 1B, Krista Gillen.
Motion and second. Discussion? All in favor of the leaves of absence, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Board of School Directors approve the following teacher, Christine Winslow, for Teachers in the Park.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Discussion? All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Board of School Directors approve the following reclassification of Daniel B. Wegman.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Board of School Directors approve a salary increase of 2% for the following exempt confidential secretaries effective July 1st, 2014, Secretary to the Superintendent, Secretary to the Assistant Superintendent, Secretary to the Business Manager, and Secretary to the Human Resource Director.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion?
Yes, I'd like to know, how does this compare to what the rank and file secretaries received in the negotiated contract that we had with them?
It's the same.
The same?
Right. There, it was a flat hourly increase, but it averages out to 2% overall across the bargaining unit.
But these secretaries are paid at a higher scale, isn't it?
No, not necessarily.
No.
No. It really depends. Depends on how long they've been here. They're obviously, they're not part of the bargaining unit, and the school district has a little latitude when they are hiring a confidential secretary or superintendent secretary who has a lot of experience. So they're not obligated to with the starting rate that's dictated by the contract. But
So you're saying that the regular secretary's got a 2% raise and these are, all right,
Yes.
thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the raises is indicate, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Board of School Directors approve the following staff conferences listed under Part H, number 1 through 9.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the conferences as printed, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That completes personnel.
I'm going to do the,
It's very late.
Give it.
I have a copy of it.
Thank you. On the addendum, we have a change of status, so support staff. I move we accept for Carolyn E. Bastian.
Second.
Motion and second. What are we doing here?
so didn't you get the,
I got it in the email, but I didn't get it in my packet here. Ms. Bastian is going from part-time guidance secretary to the full-time 188 paid secretary. I have a motion and a second. All in favor of that reclassification, please indicate so by saying
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we had one additional staff conference for Kathleen Cardoli to attend the school district charter school cyclical monitoring. At no cost to the district.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion.
Can you explain that? What is charter school cyclical monitor?
I believe that that's the same conference that is under 9. That they're just adding her onto it. I believe that's what that is. No, I'm wrong.
Dr. Davis.
Oh, there you go.
Number 4.
Dr. Miller, help us out here.
Okay. The Special Education Department has cyclical monitoring every about 5 years or so, and there's a training that my staff and myself have to go to in order before we start the process. So this is, one of my secretaries had to get onto the enrollment for it, but we'll all be going to that in August to get prepared for the monitoring that will be in February.
She's being added to number 4.
Right, I see that. How, okay. I'll talk to you later.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now I think we're done.
I don't think we're done. Could you? Student function.
Before I go forward, I'd just like to comment on the summer school. Teachers in the parks had 80 students last year, and I believe they have 230 this year.
They really have an incredible number of students coming. Is it 230? I didn't get the final
Yeah,
number.
I think that's what it is now.
I know it's big. I went down there last week and it was very busy.
2:30 is the ending.
Well,
Yeah, it's a wall on that
they
one.
have 20, I think they've got 22 teachers working there this year. Item A, I move that the Board of Directors approve the senior high school, junior high school, Whiteton Elementary handbooks for distribution to students.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I found the senior high.
I have a question regarding the,
All together, they're stapled together. I believe.
I had a question on the face covering area, and it's only a question I'm going to address to Mr. Malsey because I'm not sure.
What page are you on?
This would be now on page 43, which is probably around page 5.
Okay.
And it's the highlighted number 10. Do you think this would have any implications with possible medical, religious or any kind of other beliefs type of situation?
I'm sorry, I don't have that. I'm digging
Sorry,
for it.
what was the question?
It was dealing with item number 10, which is face paint or face coverings of any
Oh.
kind are prohibited. And I just wanted to know if this was going to have any kind of potential, issue with anyone with religious beliefs or anything like that that we might have to deal with in the future.
Well, we do have some administrators from the high school here that can maybe explain more about it, but my understanding is that's more directed toward the Halloween
Okay.
aspect, and it's religious coverings of the face would probably not be covered under this, just as a hat that might be a religious thing would be covered under our no hat policy. Jason, did you want to add anything to that?
That is correct. It's the same as we have a no hat policy in the building. The student would be allowed to wear a yarmulke, or if they were Islam and they had some kind of company, they'd be permitted to do that as long as it's in keeping with their religious observances. but really this is aimed at Halloween, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the manuals as presented, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item B, I move that the Board of Directors approve the agreement with Reading Area Community College to continue to offer dual enrollment to the students of Exeter Township. The agreement contains the following changes from last year's agreement. Participants will be charged the prevailing tuition of $117 per credit. Last year was $109, but will not be charged any fees. Clear guidelines about the evaluation of syllabi and student readiness.
Second.
Motion and second. You have the agreement attached, attachment 8B. Is there any further discussion on that agreement?
No, just a comment. It's a wonderful opportunity for kids, and I'm really grateful that we can continue in these kinds of financial times, that we can continue to offer these kinds of programs along with everything else that we do.
Any further discussion?
That's, the $117 is per credit, not per class, and I think some of these are three credit
they are.
courses.
Just like college.
Yep.
Like any further discussion, all in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item C, I move that the Board of Directors approve the agreement with the Progressions Companies, Inc. to place a master's level therapist at the senior high school in order to provide mental health services to the students identified by the school as needing services pursuant to the Student Assistant Program, and whose family or guardian has completed the intake process. This satellite office would open at the beginning of the 2014-15 school year. Progressions will be responsible for all costs.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion.
Is this just a one-year arrangement?
It would be, yes, each year it would be renewed.
Further discussion, question? All in favor of accepting Progressions, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item D, I move that the Board of School Directors approves the adoption of a settlement agreement and release in the sum not to exceed $15,000, which is representative of existing and future tuition fees effective at the beginning of the 2014-15 school year through the conclusion of the 2014-15 school year for student number 150335 in a form acceptable to the solicitor to provide for exceptional students' education, settle and compromise all claims raised by the student and parents, and authorize the Board of President and Secretary to execute that settlement agreement and release on behalf of the district.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Sure.
And we need, I guess I'd move to amend this motion to read that it's some not to exceed $15,000 plus attorney fees.
Do I have a second to the amendment?
Second.
Motion and second to the amendment. We're providing authorization to also negotiate on the attorney's fees associated with this action. Any discussion on the amendment?
Is that okay?
All in favor of the amendment, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we are at the basic motion reaching the agreement. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion, the main motion carries as amended.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Kiesinger, Curriculum and Curriculum Committee.
I was going to say curriculum program.
Programs
That
and
report,
committee.
there you go, that report.
Okay.
The committee did meet, and we discussed, we discussed some possible suggestions to changes for social studies, and we
actually spent a great deal of time discussing the one-to-one initiative. There will not be a meeting this week.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Deason? Mr. DePina is not here for Technology Committee. Does anyone have anything to bring forward for that committee? DCIU. I really tried hard to think of something good, but there's nothing I can say. Athletic Committee.
Did you get the newsletter? It's always good stuff.
We had a meeting last night. I will be getting you some minutes in the near future. Couple things that we will be hopefully discussing next week is a potential, there's a request for a potential coach for the junior high cheerleaders, just to let you know. That one individual right now handles 40 children on her own. So we're looking at it from a safety standpoint. The volunteer assistance we can't guarantee are there. Mr. Legaff does have someone who is, we're not replacing, so it will be a cost positive even if we do replace that. But again, we'll have the particulars on that. Hopefully we can discuss that in detail next month. Also, too, the advertising program continues to go well. I know Tom had another, he sent out some mailers, get an additional $3,000 received, which is good. And then also, too, we have another company that has reached out to us and would like to talk to us about advertising and taking space up below the scoreboard. So we will be discussing that next week. We do need to review the program for our advertising program, see what the banners are, and really come up with the cost to see, one, if we feel we should, and two, if we should, what would the cost be? In addition to that, one of the things that we've talked about in the past briefly, we are going to go forward, at least get some numbers. We were going to have a company come in as far as redoing the scoreboard, the electronic scoreboard, but in addition to that, it would present some advertising opportunities, and if we would do it, we would do it in hopes that it would be revenue neutral or better as such. So we would be looking at that. But when you have someone that's coming to us already saying, hey, we'd like to advertise on your scoreboard, the one that we have now, which is pretty crappy, especially too now that the field looks fantastic, by the way. If you have a chance, please go by. They did a very nice job with it. So hopefully next month we'll be able to talk about that in more detail. That's it.
I thought the scoreboard was a real improvement over the one we had.
Yeah. Bob used to have to put the numbers on.
Exactly. I referred...
And hold the light.
Actually, it was a candle back there.
There was no light. I referred earlier to the township committee. If you remember about a year ago, a rep here from the township saying you're going to spend $100,000 on this study, and I went to this with very low expectations, but it really has turned out to be something that I think is going to benefit both the township and us. For instance, talking about allowing a convention center / hotel to be built on the country club grounds, on the driving range, and then having that resort type organization run the country club and pay off the debt service that the township is currently under for that project. Total review and revamping of all the zoning requirements to make them more friendly. They have interviewed about 25 to 30 what they consider, some of them are more key in my eyes than others, but key type decision makers from industries and commercial organizations as to what their thoughts of either working in Exeter or relocating to Exeter. We've got some very good comments on that. So while I went with low expectations, it has far exceeded those expectations, which means it's up to average. No, they really are working at it, and I anticipate if we can attract some of these businesses, redoing light industrial. Right now, our heavy industrial section is the flood zone down by the river. They're looking at making that into a recreation type zoning and moving general industrial into where the light industrial is now, down on the eastern side of the. So in other words, to make it more attractive for someone to relocate here. So I think they're going about it right, and there's a lot of good people working on it. So, and we are involved, and they are considering our needs also.
Is there a real possibility that we could have a hotel? You think?
Yes.
That would be wonderful.
We have representatives from the county, Pam, what's her name?
Oh.
She, the Greater Berks Industrial Commercial Economic Development, and she has points of contact to people who would be interested. So of course, all these recommendations have to go to the supervisors, but we've got 3 supervisors already there. So I anticipate some good luck with this, and it is refreshing, to say the least, compared to some of the other interactions we've had with the township. Mr. Kramer, Public Relations.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you, sir. VCTC.
Oh, no.
OC.
No.
Mr. Brady, Facilities.
We had a brief meeting with the architectural group AEM along with the engineering group Stackhouse Benzinger at the bus facility to review the potential of reusing that facility for a modified bus facility. They're going to study that against the Wadding Creek location to see what kind of costs would be involved, to see if it's cost prohibitive, see if there are too many restrictions from the Conservation District and others, to see if that is a potential place to just work at. And they're anticipating having something back to us by August. As far as a very brief report, it's going to be just a very sketch report. It's not going to be in-depth.
Thanks, sir. Audit, Mr. Stone, nothing?
No report, sir.
Payment request, Mr. Peason.
On attachment 19-2, you will see a payment request of $1,543,052.36 from the general fund, and from the Watton Creek Elementary School, $7,893.83. Corey, you should please second this and pay our bills. Oh, you got that much on you?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor of paying bills, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent's report. You're the
Thank you.
superintendent.
On behalf of Dr. Martin, I'll be presenting the superintendent's report today. And I wanted to have just a couple items. The first is an article that I read in Thursday's paper, and I believe I made a copy of it and put it in your package. I'm not sure though, after not getting the addendum. But it's about a survey that found the STEM college grads are earning top dollar. That's the title. And in the article, it talks about not only the income, what they're earning in terms of wages being at least $15,000 higher than some of the other areas, but also the employment of those students in those professions was exceedingly higher. So that I think that as we're looking at our goal for STEM and for Exeter in general, oh, it is in there, good, thank you. That it is to make them college and career ready, making them successful beyond Exeter. I think that this is proof positive, or just another data point that states that we are heading in the right direction with regard to some of the things that we are building here with regard to STEM, and I'm sure that these are things that a lot of us already know. I think Jeff McFarland has this hanging on his wall in his office, he said. So that's I think a feather in our cap, and it points to the fact that we are heading in the right direction. The other item that I want to bring up is, before Bev went on her vacation, she gave me a whole bunch of golf tickets, and said that when I get back, you better sell every one of those. So I have 40 tickets right now that I have to unload before Dr. Martin gets back, and I just want to throw that out to anybody who wants to meet me after the meeting. $10 a piece. I'd really appreciate it, and so would Mr. McGath.
Is that miniature golf?
That's it, exactly. That's it.
Now, this is closest to the hole.
Oh,
And Carol can tell you the odds of us getting this, because she spewed them out pretty quickly at the last STEM meeting we had.
Yeah, it's 1 in 500 is your odds for winning $1,000.
That is incredible.
That is, yeah, those are odds that you wouldn't get anyplace.
Don't miss out on that deal.
It's 1 in 167 to win something.
Yeah, more.
Yeah, well, there's 3, 250 and 100 and 500.
All right.
In all seriousness, though, the golf tournament does benefit STEM and other programs that are happening here in Exeter, and if you haven't contributed yet, it'd be great.
Golf is not a STEM
So
sport.
now we've heard your personal problems, we move on.
Somebody makes my fair share.
Yeah, I can help you out with that afterward.
I just want to know.
Okay, we have the discipline reports for the various schools printed out. We have representatives from the various buildings here. Are there any questions or discussions on those reports?
Well, I just have some questions concerning what are you going to do as a principal to maybe look at the students who have been referred more than once or a number of times, and how are you going to address these children in the coming years so that maybe they will become more of a productive, engaged student rather than a discipline problem? So if any of you principals want to, tackle that, I'd appreciate hearing from you.
Can speak from the junior high. It's a lot of communication with the parents. If it's a student that's identified, to have ongoing IEP team meetings and include Dr. Miller, Ms. Garna, guidance counselor, parents, ongoing meetings with them so that we're all on the same page, giving them different strategies in order to cope and deal with the issues that are keeping them from being successful. The truancy, academics, behavioral, etc. Even a regular ed student, once they reach that point where we feel it's going to be important to sit down and meet with their parents, is to do that early and often as interventions.
I think I remember looking at the 7th and 8th grade junior high. I think you have significantly reduced your discipline problems from last year to this year, and I congratulate you. I'm sorry that I didn't say that.
Well, I appreciate that, but I will be honest with you and tell you that that has everything to do with the students and their parents and their upbringing. I've done nothing different this year than I did 2 years ago. And that's just a fact. It's going to go in cycles. You're going to hit peaks and valleys. I think any administrator here will tell you that. And we had a super group of kids, and I think that is definitely related back to the parents and your upbringing.
I would also echo Mr. Arty's comments, but also include the use of the student assistance program as another resource that the schools are using to help meet the needs of students. I know at the high school, Alicia Leonard has been phenomenal in working with students, meeting with students, trying to address issues before they become larger issues, working with those students who have kind of showed up on the radar more often, trying to create some resolutions, get parents involved again. So that's just another resource that the schools are using specifically, just that John hadn't mentioned that I wanted to mention as well.
Two things from my end. One is the most powerful meeting I had this past year in regards to a student was at Progressions with Ms. Barna. And the fact that we are bringing some of those services in-house to hopefully be proactive and help students as early as possible, that's an incredible opportunity to really help students. That's fantastic. And then simply put, the lowest amount of referrals for discipline is in the first month. So that's kind of what we spent today doing, is looking at who are the students that are our regulars, if you will, and how can we make sure that we use that time effectively in the first month to increase communication with the students, with the parents, and really build a positive relationship earlier that will definitely net rewards later on in the year.
I would say at the elementary level, we are using the same process that the older students and other administrators are using, where we put students on the behavior plan. If we see at the beginning of the year that, like this past year, we had 5 kindergartners who were not ready actually to conform to the behavior and the rules of the school. So we put them on behavior plans right from the get-go, and that makes powerful change for them. We find something that they find rewarding, and we chart their progress, communicate with parents, and make sure that we have effectively changed their behavior so that they can be a successful student in the classroom.
So then that worked toward the end of the year then?
It sure did. Yeah. Plus, nobody wants to come see Mrs. Cook either. I don't know what it is, but.
Well, that's good though. That's good.
That's a deterrent.
At least they're afraid of someone, right?
Any other questions?
I'd like to comment on the electronic devices, the change from last year to this year. Pretty incredible. Is there something in particular that you did that's different?
Yes.
Telephones hiding?
Very simply, it was providing the opportunity for students to use them between classes. So it was a no-brainer in reducing the discipline referrals. So that was a very good result. But the one thing we are tracking is to make sure that it doesn't conversely add to more cell phone issues of more social media type flare-ups that are a mess. So I think we have it under control, but it's definitely something that we continue to monitor. So far, so good.
The other one that I noticed was chronic tardiness. Now, how did you get people out of bed?
Actually, we didn't get them out of bed as effectively. That's targeted school.
Oh.
So that actually went up. So
Okay.
that is another area where we need to improve slightly, because it went a little higher than we wanted to this year for sure. Chronic tardiness, simply put, we had a old school reminder about detention. We seriously need you in class. If you don't, there will be a consequence. We need that, because chronic tardiness is 3 times you've been late to the same class. So the teacher's dealing with it in the class, trying to build a relationship, trying to reinforce getting them there, and if you're not, if you're taking our time and the class's time, it's not fair. We're going to reciprocate. So it helps a bit.
I also think that a big key to that is the teachers just emphasizing the importance of every minute in the classroom and trying to keep kids engaged. They do a really nice job of that. And, having issued out enough detentions it's not just about intentions, you gotta have the carrot too, and I think students are engaged more and active in the classrooms more, which is, generating a desire to be on time
So when are the detentions served?
after school.
So is there a bus? Oh,
We offer before school too.
very nice.
Full service detention provider.
You're good, you're good.
Any other questions?
Oh, it appears that some areas have gotten better, as Carol mentioned, and some areas have gotten a little weird and have fallen behind. Cutting classes, we're doing better there. However, what they figured out is that they could get to class, then take the hall pass, abuse it, and still get out of class. So, I mean, I guess it's just one of those things, it's the mentality of the student. Do you think the students are getting more independent in their thinking? I guess that's a nice politically correct way to put it. Or do you feel it's just a certain contingent of students that have decided that their rules are better than ours?
I'd love to hear Mr. Dean's thoughts as well, but I think it gets back to Mr. Brian Peach's question of how do we make inroads to make a difference to students. So there's a couple different outlets. Sometimes it's defiance out of frustration. Sometimes it's 15, 20 minutes out in the hallways with a hall pass. Why are you taking that long? There's different outlets that add up for some of our students that we speak to on a regular basis. So how can we reduce the number of those types of discipline outlets in total? So that's what I would say is that if you purely look at it from a discipline and punitive standpoint, you can target chronic tardiness and that will get better, but then it shows up elsewhere. And that would be my guess, is that let's try and go to the root of the issue and address some of the students, their concerns, their frustrations, and then that makes a serious impact for them and nets out to serious results with the discipline status.
Thank you very much. We need to have a retreat to make up our goals for next year. There's such sundry items. I'll send out some dates to you all if you can respond and let us know when it's convenient for you. You also have a copy of the superintendent's evaluation for your review. I am not a certified typist. I invite you to edit. If you can recognize what you put in, if you would like to edit it, I will gladly make the changes, and then it will be presented to Dr. Martin. Other than that, is there anything else to come before the board?
I just want to ask Dr. Davies, have we gotten the scores for the testing that children did in the spring?
We got the raw data in, and the principals have been looking at that, but they haven't been actually aggregated for the school performance profile or anything like that yet. That usually comes, I believe, in the fall. We did get the Keystone results. They were able to figure out the pass rate. Do you have that with you by any chance? Probably not.
We have preliminary data. We were going to go over it in depth more in August. We just got it probably at the end of last week.
It comes in a very raw format where you have to do a lot of the calculations yourself, and it's one of those things that we actually choose not to share it too publicly because it always changes, and then there's a lot of questions as to why did it go up or why did it go down. So as it becomes more finalized, we're still in a period where there's a lot of attributions going on. I believe this week we're opening up a PASA window where we have to determine which PASA students will actually become proficient or not proficient, and there's still a lot of variables at play.
I was just wondering.
Any other items come to the board? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
You're adjourned.